Hi, folks. I'm excited to take you through the interview process with Wayfair. I love having the opportunity to find really talented people to join the Wayfair team. We want our candidates to have a positive impression of our employees and us as a company, whether or not they are ultimately offered the position. Remember, our candidates are our customers, both literally and figuratively. It looks like I have an interview on the books. Let's jump in and talk about where to begin. Coming to an interview fully prepared is the first ingredient to setting a positive experience for the candidate. At Wayfair, our candidate experience and recruiting teams support the scheduling and preparation of our interviews. Prior to your interview, you will receive a calendar invite that contains all necessary information to successfully prepare for your interview. It's important to review all notes and information included in the title and body of the invite. The title conveys what role and team you are interviewing for. Focus area. This section shows the interview focus area you have been assigned. It's critical that you prepare in advance for this specific focus area and assess the candidates solely on these people principles to avoid bias, duplicative assessment, and poor candidate experience. There are several different interview types, which we'll cover in just a bit. Level. To prepare accordingly, always know the level you are assessing before going into an interview. Link to interview kit. Click on this link to access the candidate's resume, view your assigned section, and even complete your scorecard. More to come on that later. Question banks. To access specific question banks, there are a few great additional resources included in the invite, here and here. Ensure you have a comprehensive understanding of the profile and position, especially if you are interviewing for a role outside of your direct team. Review the associated job description and connect with the hiring manager to discuss any questions. There are several types of interviews that we use here at Wayfair. Some teams might include different types of interviews, such as case studies, technical assessments, and behavioral interviews. The focus of this course is on behavioral interviews. You will find additional, more detailed information on other types of interviews in future CIP content. At Wayfair, our behavioral interview questions are associated with our people principles. As you saw, when you are selected as an interviewer, you will be assigned a people principle to focus on during your conversation. For each people principle, we have a pool of behavioral questions which can be viewed here. We'll go into further detail about why we use this behavioral approach in just a bit. In the meantime, let's quickly refresh on what our people principles are, why they were chosen, and how they manifest in our day-to-day work and drive our culture and values. Our statement of values describes who we are and who we strive to be as a company. Our 9 people principles organize under 3 pillars. We drive results, we win together, and we are always improving. Describe and influence how we work at our best as Wayfarians. Together, these values and people principles drive our culture and success. While functional skills represent what we do in our jobs, people principles define how we do our jobs. Both are critical to evaluate. If a candidate cannot demonstrate our people principles during the interview process, we should think critically about whether they can be successful here. I know what you're thinking. All that, and the interview hasn't even begun. We're about to dive into the interview itself. But first, let's test what you've learned so far. All right, the time has come. It's interview day. Let's take a quick trip down memory lane. Think back to when you sat in the seat as a candidate interviewing for a job. This could be with Wayfair or another company that sticks out in your mind. You with me? Good. Let's walk through what made this interview so memorable. Good and bad. First things first, when you were being interviewed, was the interviewer on time? If not, and they were running late, what was your initial reaction? I bet you were frustrated. Punctuality is hugely important to our candidates and crucial in presenting a positive reputation of Wayfair overall. Did you know that each candidate who makes it to the interview stage receives a survey asking about their experience? Their answers make up what's called a Net Promoter Score, or NPS. This score is given on a scale of 1 to 10 and tells whether the candidate would recommend applying to Wayfair. Spoiler alert, only scores of 9 or 10 are considered promoters. Your role as the interviewer has a direct impact on how a candidate rates their experience with Wayfair. Since each candidate can also be a customer in many ways, you should think of the interview process through the lens of customer service. In fact, 20% of candidates who rated their experience poorly stated they would actively speak against Wayfair as a place to work or shop. Let's get back to memory lane. As a candidate, when you showed up for the interview, you expected the next 30 to 60 minutes to be dedicated to you, your experience, and your qualifications, right? Right. Whether you're conducting your interview virtually or in person, be sure that you remove distractions so that you can dedicate the full meeting to the candidate and be truly present for the conversation. Did you know we consistently get survey comments from candidates stating that they had interviewers checking cell phones or responding to Slack pings during their meeting? Imagine how you would have felt in their shoes. One quick clarification here. It's important to take notes during your discussion. Chances are you won't remember every detail if you try to recall it after the fact. I prefer to type my notes out while we chat, but just make sure to let the candidate know you'll take some notes from time to time and you're not replying to emails. Remember that every candidate is also a potential Wayfair customer, and we want them to feel welcome. When conducting an interview, imagine you're meeting a colleague. Have your video turned on and make sure your audio is working properly. Most importantly, just be yourself. An interview is just a conversation. While you have specific questions to ask and specific information you're seeking to gather, it should flow just like a regular conversation. Again, think of this interaction much like a meeting with one of your current colleagues. This candidate could someday be one of them. That was a lot of information. Before we move on, let's take a look at what you've learned so far. Pop quiz! The STAR method is a way to evaluate the content of a candidate's response. S. Situation. What was the situation the candidate was in? T. Task. What was their role or responsibility in this situation? A. Action. How did they handle the situation? What steps or procedures did they follow? R. Result. What was the outcome generated by the candidate's actions? To help you understand, let's take a look at this in action. I'm interviewing a potential future Wayfarian today. Pat, come take a look at our conversation. I've read a question, and when Pat replies, let's see if you can pick out the STAR. Describe a time when you identified an inefficiency or problem and took the initiative to improve or correct it.
In my current role as an analyst, I was working with my team on a project that was at risk of missing deadlines. I took it upon myself to examine historic data from previous project timelines to identify similar problems, and then consulted with these peers on how they addressed their challenges. I ultimately recommended that the team implement a daily check-in to increase our communication, and we ended up completing the project ahead of schedule.
Do you know what the STAR was in Pat's answer? Let's take a closer look at Pat's answer. Here is the situation. Here is the task. Here is the action, what Pat actually did in this example. And here is the result. This was a great response from Pat and gave me a full understanding of that example. Now that you've reviewed Pat's reply, let's take it up a notch and look at other candidates' replies to identify what's missing. When the candidate's answer seems incomplete, we ask probing questions. Probing questions let us clarify any details or missing pieces of information, but they also let us dig deeper than the surface answer. Maybe you want to understand if a person used data to propose a solution to their problem, or if they partnered with other team members. Let me give you some examples. Describe a time when you identified an inefficiency or problem and took the initiative to improve or correct it.
In my current job, our team once had a project that kept falling behind on our timeline. We couldn't figure out what was going wrong. So I did some digging and came back with a suggestion to implement a daily check-in so that we could make changes more quickly. It worked so well, we even finished the project early.
That's great! Tell me more about the digging. What steps did you take to come to the daily check-in solution?
I looked at past project timelines to see if I could identify other groups that had experienced similar issues with deadlines. Then I met with those folks to learn how they solved their challenges. A senior analyst recommended frequent communication, so I thought a daily check-in would be a great solution.
As you can see, these additional questions allow me to get a much deeper understanding of the candidate's past experiences and how they may apply them at Wayfair. Now that we've got the basics for behavioral interviewing, there are some things that can truly set you apart as a fantastic Wayfair interviewer. 3 keys to ensure I'm doing this well are active listening, note-taking, and understanding unconscious bias. We talked a bit about listening and note-taking before. Read on for additional details on unconscious bias and how it can surface in an interview. Not only is it important that you enter thorough feedback in your scorecard based on the candidate responses, but it is as important that you enter your observations bias-free. We will be reviewing biases in the final section. But in the meantime, let's go over a few feedback do's and don'ts. Here are some feedback best practices. Only evaluate the people principles that you were assigned. Avoid making assumptions about other competencies or skill sets that are outside the scope of your focus area. Ensure your feedback is based on and supported by concrete evidence and examples versus subjective statements or feelings. Avoid "I feel like" or "my gut says" statements. Avoid commenting on pace or energy, which are not measurable or related to our people principle evaluation. Uphold consistent leveling expectations and bar. Because leveling is not always black and white, make sure your evaluation on level is based on just the people principles you were assigned and the evidence collected during your interview. We should not automatically level someone down because they don't meet our bar. This should prompt a larger conversation regarding the caliber of the candidate. Eliminate the use of soft yes or soft no. While your decision could change during the debrief discussion, interviewers should make a clear, firm decision on each candidate after the interview. Your decision should hold for all teams. Avoid statements like, "They're not a fit for my team, but could be a fit for others," unless there is clear, tangible evidence to support the recommendation. When in doubt, it is better to vote no and let the debrief conversation inform your final decision. You may hear feedback in the debrief that changes your mind or reinforces your decision. Evaluations from other interviewers will help everyone understand if the candidate is a fit and at what level. Do not ask any questions or provide feedback related to the following: citizenship, hometown and/or childhood, disabilities, illness, and/or workers' compensation, current or former compensation, family, personal life, marital status, sexual orientation, and/or extracurricular activities, year of graduation from high school or college. Keep all this in mind. You will score your overall decision based on the following scale: strong yes, exceedingly strong evidence of functional skills and/or people principles. Yes, evidence of functional skills and/or people principles. Could excel with some coaching. No, minimal evidence of functional skills and/or people principles. Definitely not. No evidence of functional skills and/or people principles, even when prompted. Congratulations! You're now ready to take on interviewing at Wayfair. You will receive an email following this training with resources to help you hone your interviewing skills. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out to your talent partner or direct manager. Good luck interviewing, and thank you for helping us build the best team.